would not be able to compete. Now, I don't think she did it because of she was hated me or anything. She just had low expectations of a black boy from rural, segregated Arkansas and fervently believed that I wouldn't be able to compete. Yeah, I had an A average from academia. But she fundamentally believed that. And so when I went back home and told my sister, Jean, what had happened, Jean, you weren't too happy, were you? She wasn't happy at all. Her husband, I should tell you, the late artist Blackshear, stood 6'4", or Douglas was 6'5", close to it, maybe 6'6". Anyway, he was huge. And she instructed him that he was going to school, Oakland Tech, the next day, and that he would not be returning home until I was enrolled in all the courses I wanted to in college prep. So Artist takes me to school. We arrived at Oakland Tech, finds a parking place, and Artist he couldn't, why is he so anxious? He couldn't wait. Just literally dragging me into the counselor's office. And he said, where is that Miss Hilders? And then when she came out, Artist, with not a smile on his face, told her, it's my brother-in-law. You're going to enroll him in any class that he wants to be enrolled in. I had never ever seen a black man talk to a white woman or any white person in that manner. And guess what? I was enrolled in all of my college prep courses. I give you that story to let you know that no matter, and I talk about that in the book, no matter what expectations people have of you, only you determine what you can do. So when I graduated from Oakland Tech in 1961 and had the opportunity to go to college, I did not apply to any state colleges, universities, or anything else. I didn't have money. And I wasn't about to, as Jean and Otis had been so good to me, to try to give me some money. But I was told that there was a college not far away called Oakland Junior College, and it would be a great place to start. And it was on Grove Street. So when I entered Oakland Junior College in 1961, I entered it with expectations that I could compete. Before I graduated from Oakland City College in 1963, the name had changed to what? Oakland City College. And then later, the name was changed to Merritt College. But regardless of the name, it was here at this institution that I got my first real feeling of education. And I will always remember, I guess it was, if I recall his name correct, Professor Bach, B-A-C-H, I think he was, who taught me in my first English course, English Lit. And he was really good. He gave me an assignment on a book called Moby Dick. I had to do a review. And when I did that review and gave it back to him, as all the other students had to do, and then watched him pass out the papers to every student but me, you know, I'm freaking by that time. Oh God, what is this about? And then he said, this last paper, I want to read it to the rest of you as a model. And by that time, I'm about to faint. Model for what? I said, I'm thinking, you don't give out models for flunking. Say, of a model of a paper that all papers ought to look like. And that really boosted my ego. By then, I was convinced, ain't no stopping me now. There is nothing I cannot do. And thanks to Merritt College, although it was Oakland City College at that time, I am on my way. So through San Francisco State, through University of California School of Law, etc., I always remember, and you will see in this book, the lessons that I learned from rural segregated Arkansas, from my first venture into higher education at Oakland Junior College, San Francisco State, and at the University of California, Berkeley School of Law. I don't want to burden you with a lot of details because I want you to get the book and read it. But I wanted to give you a flavor, as I said before, of some of my real life stories. I started to work at PG&E in 1972 after having finished law school and finished up at the probation department as a probation officer, and got the opportunity to go to law school because of the assassination of Dr. King. But when I finished law school in 1972, I started at Pacific Gas and Electric Company in San Francisco as a young lawyer. Can't remember, Gerald, whether you were there at that time or not. Gerald Green is here from PG&E, former colleague. But from my very first moment in the law department at PG&E, I saw it as an opportunity to excel, an opportunity to be the best lawyer that I could be. And you will see in the book, the first major case I tried up in a place called Redding, California. The outcome of that case, when all the expectations were that I would lose it, and I didn't. You will see the pinnacle of my venture in the law department, something only 2% of the lawyers in this nation has ever done, and that is argue a case in the United States Supreme Court, and obviously only 1% of those win, because for every winner there's a loser, and I was not the loser. So I did argue one of the first, what they call corporate free speech cases in the United States. And if you were to go to law school or just Google and see how that whole issue of corporate free speech came up in the United States, and I had the opportunity to help fashion those arguments. And I just want to give you a little brief synopsis of my appearance in the United States Supreme Court, against all odds, by the way. You read the great details of that in the book. But when I walked to the lectern podium and looked at the 9 justices of the United States Supreme Court, one of whom got up and walked out because apparently he had to recuse himself because of a conflict of interest, and that was Justice Blackmun. But the other 8 justices, the one black on the United States Supreme Court, Thurgood Marshall, I could see him, and I just talk about that in the book, smile. A black lawyer up here arguing a major case for Fortune 500 companies. And it was so that he said, But to make a long story short, that case was won, and it is taught in almost all law schools in constitutional law and referenced in just about any case that refers to the First Amendment and corporate free speech. And again, a poor little country boy from Arkansas, a graduate of this school, was a person who argued that. And finally, and I'm going to open it up to questions for you to ask me, was my venture at PG&E, 34 years, 17 on the legal side, 17 on the business side. 34, I thought, enchanting years. And when I ended my career at PG&E in 2006, 2007, I left with a feeling of accomplishment. But whatever I may have accomplished at PG&E in terms of a lawyer, as an executive, and I retired as vice president of environmental, it happened because of the many networks that I had, both internally and externally. And one of the people who had a profound impact on my last assignment as vice president there of environmental is here with us. And Toye Moses, who is mentioned in the book, can attest to the story of how he and the president of the local chapter of the NAACP in San Francisco came to visit the president of PG&E. And they never had to tell him why they came. He anticipated it. And guess what? He responded even before they asked. And that goes to show the importance of having both internal and external networks. And I would encourage all of you to think about that. So with that, why don't I open it up to questions about my book, Goodbye Arkadelphia. And I see my wife, Linda, has come. And these books are available. Paperback is $20, hardback is $30. And I would encourage you to consider reading it and maybe even giving it as a gift to someone you think could benefit. It could be a birthday. It could be Christmas. It could be just somebody that you think would benefit from the story that you've heard today. And that's about a poor little country boy from Arkadelphia, Arkansas, who has learned and did learn to turn obstacles into opportunities. Thank you very much, and I will answer any questions that you may have. I know you got plenty of questions. Yes.
What was it like to go back to Arkadelphia after you became a success, and what did it seem like to you? I mean, did it look, what did people react to you, and what did you feel like going back there?
Well, that's a good question. I've been going back to Arkadelphia. I don't think it's been a year since 1960 that I haven't been to Arkadelphia. And it has changed over the years. I remember when in the late 1960s, when the first school was desegregated, their high school. And over the years, it has been good. I've been invited back on many occasions to speak. I spoke at Henderson State University, used to be Henderson State Teachers College when my sister was there. So the reception has always been very good, almost like a local boy did all right. Although my parents used to remind me whenever I would come as a young lawyer about this great lawyer, John Walker in Little Rock. And so they just sort of let me know that even though I thought I had done well, there's somebody even greater. Other questions? Mr. Blackshear.
How important is it for, like, your sister reached back? Mr. Harris, how important is it for families and friends and associates to keep this networking process? Because it seems like that's critical for you to keep moving up and establishing where you are today? How important it is for family to not throw away and invest?
Well, good question. Family is always important. No matter what you do, when you do it, or how you do it. If you have the support of family, it is always going to make, in my view, a difference. But even if you don't, and there are many situations nowadays where young people don't have the support of family, but still they rise, as Maya Angelou would say. So yes, that is very important. It's a great bonus. But for those who do not have family support, as the old song said, hold on, don't give up. There is support in the community. That's why in the book I talk about networks. I talk about the importance of giving back, of helping others. So, good question. Troy, Dr. Moses?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I can't wait till I digest your book. My question is, what kind of message of hope can we convey to the younger generation who are considered less achieved or still trying to make it? Because the younger generation need to read this book so that they not just go and say, okay, life is good. So
That's an excellent question. And I think that the hope that we give to this generation and generations yet unborn is a hope for education. Malcolm X said it best when he said, education is our passport to the future. Tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. People have to understand, without an education, you don't have a passport. Without a passport, where can you go? You can't even leave the country without a passport. And certainly once you get out, they ain't letting you back in without a passport. So therefore, Malcolm X was correct. The other thing that we should always teach our young people is the final word in this book, Goodbye Arkadelphia, where I quote from Frederick Douglass. And it in essence says that you may not get all that you work for, but you're certainly going to work for all that you get. No free lunches, no free bride. And I sort of sums it up by saying that whether you're picking cotton in the hot cotton fields and you're measured by the pounds you pick, or whether you're arguing in the United States Supreme Court and you're measured by the weight of your arguments that you present to the court. So therefore, again, no free lunches. You're going to work for all that you get in life. And that's what we have to teach our children over and over and over again. And don't assume that the road is going to be easy. Langston Hughes said, ain't no crystal staircase. And he's right. And we have to teach that every day to our children. Our children have to learn to read and read and read and read some more, because if you don't read, you're out of it. You are really out of it. There's nothing greater than reading. So good question. Any other question? Yes, Dr. Kitchen.
Like yourself, I grew up in rural Missouri, and I went to a segregated school, black teachers, black community, up until 1973 when our school system integrated. You've seen a lot of changes in education from K-12 and higher ed. I have myself. I attended an HBCU in Missouri called Lincoln University. What do you feel is the lead into education for students of color, because most students here at this college are of color. What do you see the next steps in education, higher education for students of color going on after they leave Merritt College?
Well, it all depends on why you're here in the first place. I think most students are probably here because they want to move forward. But then they have to understand that in order to move forward, you have to have a plan of action. If you want to go to a state college when you leave here, or a university, etc., you got to be prepared for it. It's not willy-nilly. You got to make certain that you're taking, and I talk about this in the book, taking the right courses, being focused. So I think when you consider education, there is no institution in my mind greater than the community college system in terms of getting a good foundation for your education. I think it's silly, my own view. It is silly to waste a lot of money unnecessarily that you can't afford going into debt when you can get your first 2 years at a substantially reduced cost with no devaluation of the educational process. Yes, sir.
My question to you is, for the younger generation that's been formerly incarcerated, if they're coming out of here to the free world and don't know, they don't have education or not, what would you tell them?
What would I tell? Well, if you've been incarcerated, person who's been incarcerated is coming out, my first inclination would say go to your local community college, talk to a counselor, because there is hope. Where did Malcolm X get his education? Where did he start? Prison. There are many people who have started in prison and turned out to be great individuals, and Malcolm X is just one of those individuals. But again, he's the person I quoted as saying what? Education is our passport to the future. So even if a person is incarcerated, there is no excuse for that person not succeeding in life. But you gotta understand, in a capitalistic society, education is the foundation. You ain't got no education, you ain't got no passport. And you just gotta say it just that plainly. Get an education. As I said in the book, as my mama used to say, something they can't take away from you.
So we have 2 more questions. We're going to ask the community person. The last question will be Dr. Mario Rivas.
Hello, Bob. In 91 of the Oakland Hill Fire, you had just been made manager of Oakland, just prior to about a year prior to that. My question, and I remember those times because we was in a meeting and you were saying how when they made you manager, the people in San Francisco didn't think you'd be successful. Well, the odds were you were not going to be successful. And the team that you inherited were predominantly African-American union workers. And I remember them saying, Bob, what do you need us to do to help you succeed? Now, you probably didn't receive all of that all the time. So my question as a manager, managing folks who don't look like you, how do you encourage them to give their best to support you? And how you do that at work? And what type of support system at home do you need to make that possible?
Gerald, that's a good question. I do have a chapter on that called Moving Down to Move Up. And it is true that I left the law department and became manager of one of the company's most challenging divisions. A lawyer never been allowed to run a division. And you're absolutely correct. I think most people knew, since I wanted to leave the department and law department become an operator in the business side of the house, that they deliberately signed me to the toughest division, one of the toughest divisions in the system, because they assumed that I was going to fail, and for good reason. Because the last 4 managers who managed that division had failed. Only lasted 1 year. And Gerald is absolutely correct. The employees, about what, 30, 35%, maybe 40% of all of PG&E black employees were in that particular division. And I can tell you, when I showed up, and it was just incredible the amount of support I received in that division. And I had no experience in running, managing a business, except other than what I had learned when they sent me off to Harvard Law Business School. But we were able, within 12 to 18 months, to become one of the top performing divisions in the PG&E system. And it was because of the support of the people. And that has always been my, one of the things I try to do is develop relationships, learn how to relate to people. And if you do that, if you do it well, people will support you, black and white. But it's going to depend on how you operate. And there's a chapter that I have in my book called Rattlesnakes Never Sleep. So you got to also be aware that there are people out there that are rattlesnakes. And if you don't know a rattlesnake is present, it can be deadly. But if I know a rattlesnake is in this room, big deal. Except if I don't know the rattlesnake is here, it's when I'm in trouble. Gerald, great question. I understand your final question.
Final question. Dr. Mario Rivas, I'm the Senate President here at Merritt. And thank you for coming to our college.
Thank you, Doctor.
And I was raised down the street from Tech in North Oakland on welfare with a single Latina mother.
Right.
Clean houses, so been through a little bit too. But I want to know at Tech, what was the emotional challenges you faced to stay on your path? And then also, I think related, going from the probation department to UC Law School, what were the emotional challenges that you faced that maybe were an obstacle, but that you had to really face in order to keep on track?
That's an excellent question. Let me start with Tech. Tech was a different world, having come, as I said earlier, from this rural segregated South, with all of my teachers being black, never been before a white teacher. I found it incredible in the sense that Helen Keller, Mrs. Keller, who was my English teacher, first white teacher I ever had an opportunity to relate to, was so supportive, directly in contrast to Mrs. Hilda's. And it's that type of support, I think, that was very important for me in Tech, because it helped to establish that I could compete, and did compete, and competed very well with those students. As a matter of fact, so well, I guess until now I'm in the Tech Hall of Fame. But the probation department to UC Berkeley Law School, again, similar obstacles. I had never envisioned going to law school. As you will read in the book, it was April 4, 1968, that my fate was determined because of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. When he was assassinated, April 4, 1968, Boat Hall, University of California School of Law, decided for the first time that it would really open up its doors and go out and try to recruit more than that 1 or 2 black law students who came by the university every now and then. So it was when they recruited 12 of us, blacks, into law school. And then the big concern was, okay, we've opened up these doors, we've given these students an opportunity, can they make it? Can they make it in one of the nation's best law school. And my thought was, Arkansas, Williams Elementary School, Oakland Tech, Merritt College, San Francisco State. Why not? Hey, let's get it on. And I really enjoyed law school. Ended up, as you will see in the book, on what they call the prestigious law review, where only a handful of students get invited to join. So it was an opportunity, and every opportunity I tried to take advantage of. Clearly, an obstacle was that the expectations that these students, quote, who didn't meet up to the normal standards for admission would not be able to compete. And I've been confronted with that on many occasions, as I point out in the book. And each occasion I've tried to, and thank God, have been able to overcome that. And I am not being cocky, but it's just never dawned on me that I can't do something. And especially when you tell me, I don't think you can do it, that's just encouraging me to do it. Saying this when I went before the United States Supreme Court and other case after case, a situation after situation, as president of the National Bar Association. Became the first lawyer from California ever to be president of the National Bar at a very early age. And mostly because of the support from the lawyers in this particular area. Became the Grand Pole Bar, the National League of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity. Became the Grand Psi Archon, Sigma Phi Phi Fraternity, the Boule. So that's my answer to that, is that the motivation, once the motivation is there and you're convinced that you can do it, there is no obstacle.
One last question.
Oh, my sister.
Yes. With the progress, in which we've made progress with Martin Luther King and a lot of other people, when you listen to what's happening in our world today, what would you say to the young people to make them participate and make certain that we don't regress and that we continue to progress?
That's a good question, and that's education again, and it's up to us to really take it to them if they're not taking it to us. Understand what they see as important. Understand many of our young people now through social media or whatever, we have to be flexible enough to go to where they are and continue to give the message to them. It may not be the old message that I would give through horse and buggy, but if it's through a Tesla, then that's how you have to do it. So I think it's just communicate, and relate to them. They want the knowledge, but we have to encourage them over and over and over and never ever give up. With that, I thank you very much, and if you are interested in a copy of the book, my wife is here. Thank you very much.
So again, we want to thank Dr. Harris for his thoughts and insights on his book, Goodbye Arkadelphia. As he mentioned, we have books here that are being sold. So if you don't have a book, come up and get one. Get it autographed by the author. But again, Merritt College President Dr. Marie Lane Burns and the staff, students, and faculty would want to thank you for, first of all, choosing Merritt College back then, and for being a person who engages and inspires and encourages people to be their best and to do their best. As the old folks used to say, if people knew better, they would do better. With that, thank you.